Once, in a vibrant town nestled among rolling hills, there lived a wealthy merchant named Alric. Known far and wide for his sharp business acumen, he had amassed riches beyond anyone's imagination. Yet, for all his wealth, Alric was a solitary man. His mansion, though grand, was cold and silent. His days were filled with deals and ledgers, his nights with restless dreams. One day, while wandering through a distant market on the outskirts of the kingdom, Alric came across a peculiar stall. The stall belonged to an old woman whose grey eyes seemed to pierce through the veil of time itself. Spread before her were trinkets, oddities, and items unlike any Alric had ever seen. Among them, 3 mirrors caught his eye. The first was framed in shimmering gold, so bright it seemed to glow with the warmth of the sun. The second was encased in polished silver, its surface smooth and cold like moonlight. The third, humble in comparison, was bordered by simple wood, its edges rough but inviting. "These mirrors," the old woman began, her voice low and melodious, "are unlike any you have seen before. They do not show your reflection as others do. The golden mirror reveals your past, the silver mirror your present, and the wooden mirror, it shows what could be." Alric, always intrigued by things of value and utility, purchased the mirrors at a steep price, convinced they would bring him some advantage in life. That evening, back in his mansion, Alric placed the mirrors in his study, curious to see if the old woman's words were true. He stood before the golden mirror first. At once, the surface rippled, and an image appeared. He saw a boy running barefoot through a meadow, laughing as the wind tousled his hair. The boy was chasing a butterfly, his face lit with pure, unbridled joy. Alric's breath caught, he recognized the boy as himself. The scene shifted. He saw his mother, her hands weathered from years of toil, kneeling in the fields. Her face was lined with care, yet her eyes sparkled with love as she looked up at the boy. Alric felt a pang of guilt. He had left his humble beginnings behind, forgotten the warmth of his mother's love and the values she had instilled in him. In his pursuit of wealth, he had severed the ties that had once grounded him. Shaking, he turned to the silver mirror. This time, the mirror reflected his present reality. He saw himself sitting alone in his grand dining hall, a feast spread out before him. The table, long enough to seat 20, was empty save for him. The vision shifted to his office, where merchants and courtiers surrounded him, their faces painted with smiles. Yet, the smiles never reached their eyes. Alric realized they were there not out of affection but obligation. His fortune had brought him power and respect, but it had also left him isolated and unloved. Finally, with trembling hands, Alric stood before the wooden mirror star. For a moment, the surface was cloudy, as though obscured by fog. Slowly, a scene began to emerge. He saw himself, older but not alone. He was sitting by a fire, surrounded by villagers whose faces glowed with warmth and gratitude. Though his robes were simpler and his fortune smaller, he looked content in a way he never had before. He could hear laughter, feel the sense of connection. It was a life of meaning, not just wealth. The mirror's vision seemed to whisper, "This is what could be, but only if you choose it." For days, Alric could not sleep. The visions haunted him, stirring something deep within. He began to see his life not as a series of victories, but as a string of missed opportunities to connect, to give, to love. Finally, he made a decision. He returned to his childhood village, where the fields were now barren, and the houses crumbled. He spoke to the villagers, offering to rebuild their homes, their wells, their livelihoods. He stayed among them, working alongside them. With each act of kindness, he felt the coldness inside him thaw. His wealth diminished as he gave freely, but he discovered something far greater in return: companionship, purpose, and joy. The boy in the meadow, the man in the lonely dining hall, and the elder by the fire, they were all parts of him. And now, he was becoming the man he saw in the wooden mirror. Years later, the 3 mirrors still hung in his study, but Alric rarely looked at them. He no longer needed their guidance. He had learned their lesson. While the past shapes us and the present reflects us, the future is ours to craft with the choices we make today. And so, Alric lived, not as the richest man in the kingdom, but as the happiest, his legacy written not in gold, but in the hearts he touched. The moral of a story is: our past teaches us lessons, our present reflects our priorities, but our future is a canvas shaped by our choices. True wealth lies not in material possessions, but in the connections we nurture, the kindness we show, and the purpose we find in giving and growing.